All right, what is going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap this week's Mets versus Mariners series, as well as all the other news and rumors that has been going on in Mets land these past few days. It's just me here. I don't have my co-hosts, but you know what? We're just gonna rock with it. I'm pretty sure I'm capable of talking for an hour and a half straight. Let's hope that I don't lose my voice because there has been a lot that has been going on, and let's just say not really in a good way. But before we get into all of that, must do the usual house cleaning that we do every single episode. I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for this very podcast that is now recorded live on Sundays and on Thursdays. Today, it is being recorded on Monday because of how the series lines up, but usually it is Sundays and Thursdays. But for those of you who are watching on playback and want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you who are in the live chat as of right now, I want to let you know that we do love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all of that, all your basic thoughts on this team or all your specific thoughts on this team. And if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not. I'm just going to be starring them throughout the show so I can pull up and pick up as many as I can throughout to keep that conversation going. You guys know the drill already. Also, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features Frank, who is not here today, like I said. His instant reactions after every single Mets game, which is titled the Mets Frankly Post Game. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of these new episodes that drop at 9 a.m. the following day that they are recorded. So let's get into episode number 73. So I'm not even going to sugarcoat it here. These last three games in Seattle, this was probably some of the worst baseball I've seen the Mets play in quite a while. And that is quite a statement to make because we have seen the Mets slog through a lot. But I don't think I've ever seen the Mets go through a 3-game series or a 4-game series where they score one run. Overall, the offense slept against some really, really good pitching, obviously. But there is no excuse as to where you should be getting shut out like this, especially when you do get opportunities like they have, straining a lot of runners in scoring position, which has continued to kind of peek out of the window as a problem since the All-Star break. And it was on full display here. The second game, they didn't even get a runner to second base. I mean, it was a pathetic showing. Now, listen, I understand that Seattle has good pitching. I get it, but I've seen pitchers give up 2 or 3 runs before. Like, you can win in the margins against this team, even though they have good pitching. And this was an absolute domination of the Mets. And this was just completely embarrassing. I mean, I don't even know how to even describe how, just boring and how time consuming this was to watch. And not to mention, it's just from all aspects of the game, not even the offense, which pretty much takes center stage here because it was so bad. This was just a mess. From the pitching, tons of base runners being given up, tons of defensive miscues being made, leading to worse actions, of course. And then, you obviously had some of the big bats just not come up when you needed them to. And overall, they just got completely, as it says in the title, manhandled by the Mariners for 3 straight games. So that was 72 hours. I think most Mets fans want to get back, and that really just was not. It just was not ideal whatsoever. And the Mets are so lucky because if you can see on the screen with the standings, they are lucky to be in the exact same position that they were going into that Colorado series or something, just a half game out of that final wild card spot. Because the Mets played some of the worst baseball I have seen them play for a while. And especially in this stretch they have been going on where they've pretty much put themselves back into this race. That was some of the worst baseball I have seen in a long time from this team. This looked like one of the worst teams in all of baseball. That's how they looked. That was how bad they were. Every single thing on the field, there was absolutely nothing encouraging from like anybody. Maybe a few pieces here and then that I'll probably break down a little bit and dissect a little bit. But this was probably the worst series I have seen them play in a really, really long time. And even though it may sound as overreacting, you can say that, oh, well, the sky isn't falling. They're still in this. These are the types of pitchers you're going to face in the postseason. This is the type of pitching that you are going to face. You are not going to be facing Austin Gomber. You are not going to be facing Griffin Canning. You're not going to be facing Bailey Falter. You're going to be facing the best of the best. And 100% you are going to, because at the top of the rotation, they put their best weapons out there and against some of these opponents. Not to mention, if the Mets were to line up in that last wild card spot, they probably would end up playing Milwaukee. Milwaukee has some of the best pitching in all of baseball. They traded Corbin Burns. Brandon Woodruff is out for the year, but they still have some of the best pitching in all of baseball because they have depth. So you're not going to be hiding from this type of pitching for as long as you think you're going to. So if you're saying that this doesn't have any real factor into the rest of the season of how there's so much left, there needs to be some emphasis put on a series like this, because that's the type of pitching you're going to face in the postseason. And if you're going to score one run in the postseason, you got a problem in a 3-game series. You kind of have to score runs in order to win games. It's kind of a weird concept, I know, but that was pathetic. That was awful. And speaking of pathetic, let's just get into the full series rundown with this. Now, game 1, Jose Quintana was good for a second. Started off rough, retired like 14 in a row, and then the doors were blown off in the 7th inning there. Adam Ottavino did not help, and we'll get into Ottavino in a second. Lindor with a hit in the game. Nimmo with a hit in the game. Winker got a hit. Martinez had a hit. McNeil had a hit. And Vientos had a hit. But that was it. They did not score anything. A hitless performance from Pete Alonso. They were 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Lose 6-0. In the second game, Sean Manaea, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous after back-to-back incredible starts. This was probably the worst that he had in terms of distance. Tons of base runners against him. Just was not able to make good pitches whatsoever. And he just got completely outpitched by Logan Gilbert, having another great year. Lindor with a 2-hit game. Martinez with another hit. Bader had a hit. Nimmo was 0 for 3 with a walk, but that was pretty much it. And like I said, 0 Mets base runners reached second base. That was absolutely pathetic. The only good bright spot from this game was Reed Garrett coming back and striking out the side in his return from the injured list, which is good to see. Glad to see we have him back in the bullpen, back into the fold. And the second game, and the third game, which was on ESPN, and absolute torture when you had basically Victor Robles screaming into the mic. We had the ESPN basically just talking about how great the Mariners are. So it was very uncomfortable. Let's just say that. I had to watch most of it on mute because it was pretty much torture, and not to mention the score, 12-1. Luis Severino went 6 innings, had a good stretch at the beginning there, but the doors fell off after a costly error by Lindor. And he did top 99 miles an hour. He was better than he was the last 2 outings, but not really much to say much. But again, the offense did absolutely nothing. The only run in this series, the only run in this game, was a solo home run from Jeff McNeil. And like somebody said in the chat, saying that Jeff McNeil carried the entire offense throughout this entire series. Brad saying that that's not good. You need your big boppers to do that, and Jeff McNeil is not one of them, even if he is having a good stretch. This was one of the most tedious series I think I've ever watched. This was really bad. And I'm not trying to overreact here, but let's just say in a 3-game series, it kind of is a preview of the playoffs, whether you want to look at it from that angle or not. It is kind of a simulation of the playoffs now, since it's a 3-game series in the first round. You're in this wild card race. And how these matchups go up against these pitchers. You have this in the regular season. In the postseason, you are going to probably have a little bit more adrenaline. Guys are going to be throwing harder. Guys' stuff is going to be a little bit more sharp. Some guys choke, some guys don't. But you have to expect the best because you are playing the best in this game in the postseason. So these types of 3-game series where they're not hitting, the pitching we already knew there was going to be some concern. We knew that, there's going to be times where these guys roll. There's going to be times when these guys struggle. That we knew was a given. But with an offense like this, facing elite pitching for 3 straight nights, or really good pitching, it does merit some concern. Let's just say that. And the fact that the Mets have really emphasized with their hitting approach as to where they like to draw walks, they don't like to chase. The Mariners throughout this series, they did not throw many strikes. The Mets chased a lot, and I mean a lot. And main culprit, of course, being Pete Alonso, who likes to swing at every single slider outside of the zone. It's become pretty much a full-on, let's say, just a full-on hole in his game now, being the breaking ball. Let's just say that. If you look at some of his numbers from triple threat splits, which is velocity, breaking, off speed. Velocity and off speed, he's actually been really good against, which is really hard to tell because we've also seen him be late on a lot of fastballs too. But the breaking ball, that is just miles below compared to the other pitches. So what is a pitcher going to do when there's 2 strikes? They're going to attack him. JD Martinez has been flailing at pitches out of the zone for the last few series. That is not good. Nimmo is still struggling. We'll get into him in a second. The only guy who looked like he actually gave a shit throughout all of the 3 of these games was Francisco Lindor. And even though Lindor did screw up in that second game, which is one of the main reasons as to why, the roof came crashing down on them because of that error that he made. Right after that, there was a home run by Cal Raleigh and pretty much knocked Severino out of the game. You could really tell. He was really frustrated after that. I'm not making any excuses for that. That's a play he has to make. He's Lindor. He's one of the best defenders in all of baseball, possibly the best of this generation, one of the best. So he's got to make that play. It's got to happen, and it probably would have kept it a 3-run game or something. But the offense couldn't do anything whatsoever. So it's not like it really mattered. But again, that's a routine play that he's got to make, and it happens. And, Gabriel Mendez coming in here and saying it's kind of funny how Lindor gets so much hate, but Nimmo or Alonso, they show are no-shows. The excuses are never ending. Exactly. Again, that is exact. Now, listen, I think Nimmo, again, and I'll get into Nimmo in a second, and I'm going to hold him accountable here. With Alonso, I feel like Mets fans, and I was a victim of this too. A lot of Mets fans have seen the Mets lineup for a while, and I saw a lot of people talking about this on Twitter yesterday. A lot of Mets fans have seen the Mets lineup that has gone on these past few years, especially with Pete here, the past 5 years or whatever, and they see no protection for him. And they instantly go to jump on it as to where he doesn't have any power protection when nobody behind him is hitting. That's not really an excuse this year. It just isn't. Not to mention you have JD Martinez, even though he is struggling. You have Mark Vientos, who has proven that he is, a potential prolific power bat. I don't know if he's a 40 home run bat like Pete Alonso is, but, if he gets on a hot streak like he has been able to do, you could see 25-30 from him in a full season. Francisco Alvarez, we know the power is there. He has struggled as well. But we also have a lot deeper of a lineup that has been anchored in the bottom third. So those types of excuses for Pete Alonso, they're non-existent this year. They're just not. He has to come through when the guys in front of him get on. He needs to drive in these runs. And there's no real excuse for it anymore. There's no real I'm actually tired of giving an explanation for it. Like how I just gave an explanation as to where, he's been terrible against the breaking ball. Well, I can't even use that as an excuse. They're going to keep using the breaking ball. They're going to keep using the breaking ball against him. And that's the way they're going to keep getting him out. And not to mention, I think that a lot of people, there are some numbers about Pete this year that I think are misconstrued, mainly because of how bad he's been with runners in scoring position. But the problem that we face here with Pete Alonso is when you're supposed to be, even with a deep lineup like this, when you're supposed to be the main source of offense, they're going to start pitching around you, especially when they know what you're going to chase and what you're going to offer at. They're going to start pitching around you and giving more pitches to guys who they know are not that bigger of threats. Like with Harrison Bader has been good, but he's not going to be someone who hits for this prolific power, one swing, does damage, right? Tyrone Taylor, he's hit quite a few homers this year, but he's not the main damage guy. Same thing goes with somebody like JD Martinez, who hasn't hit for power that we know that he's been able to do throughout his career. Yes, he's getting older, whatever. Same goes for Nimmo, who slowed down or whatever, but Pete Alonso is still the main feared hitter in this lineup. All these other guys are the protection around him. But now, when they can completely abuse him with the breaking ball, what else can you do at this point? And this is a good point coming from Darren Rivera, saying that if Pete Alonso struggles in the regular season, imagine the playoffs where the pressures are more and the pitching is the best he'll face. And that is kind of the main example of this series, of how I kind of see it. This is the type of pitching you're going to face in the playoffs. You're not going to be facing the bottom of the barrel. You're not going to be facing spot starters unless these teams are completely hurt. But most teams get into the playoffs by their pitching not being hurt and being there and contributing. And right now, even if you get that last seed, like I said, you're going to face the lowest division winner, which would be Milwaukee, if I'm stand corrected. It would be Milwaukee. Milwaukee is one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball. So you're not going to hide from it in the postseason. Still, they haven't gotten to the postseason, so maybe this conversation is obsolete in 2 weeks. Maybe they go on a complete slump. Who knows? But from what we just saw, that was pathetic. That was absolutely pathetic from multiple guys in this lineup. They had their chances. They had that one game where they didn't have many chances and they just completely fell asleep. They had runners in scoring position many times. The first game of the series, I believe, they had a runner on first or second or two runners on in the first 5 innings against Bryce Miller. Couldn't cash him in. There was no approach. Constantly chasing. Not making good swing decisions whatsoever. They took advantage of every single weakness of this Mets lineup. And that is how we scored 1 run in the span of 72 hours. And I am really tired of listening to the excuses. I really am. And this may be just me, having no empathy or whatever. Or, I'm just a terrible person. But when I hear something like this is when this is types of things that kind of irk me. We already know how I'm not the biggest fan of Eric Chavez, right? I have never been someone who thinks his approach sustains throughout a baseball season. And it doesn't sustain in the playoffs. Then I hear something like this. Mike Puma of the New York Post said that he talked to Eric Chavez about the Mets' scoring woes throughout this road trip. And he said, every team has these types of road trips. The makeup game, whatever, we could come up with excuses, but I think a combination of the road trip and the Mariners are good at pitching. That kind of took over. Let me repeat that again, okay? Every team has these types of road trips. The makeup game, whatever. We could come up with excuses, but I think a combination of the road trip and the Mariners that are good at pitching, that kind of took over. What does that sound like to you? Let me know. What, guys in the chat, let me know what that sounds like to you. That sounds like someone who says he doesn't want to make an excuse, but contradicts himself and says, let's make an excuse. I understand this was an unorthodox road trip. I get it. It's a fact. But when you have this mentality, it's one thing to just not do anything like they did in this series offensively. But when you have this mentality of, oh, this is fine. This is all right. We'll just move on. No, we can't move on. Because once you do move on to the playoffs, this is the type of pitching you're going to face. We're going to blame the jet lag then? We're going to blame our hitters are just not there? We're going to blame the weather? Are we going to blame the temperature? I mean, can somebody tell me how any of this is okay in a playoff race, let alone in a playoff game, which, by the way, let's not forget those 3-game series, by the way. Let's not forget 2 years ago, this is the same guy that was coaching the team that got one hit in an elimination game. Let's not forget that. Water under the bridge, right? Who cares? They won 101 games. There's always a ring for that. So the fact that I'm getting that from the hitting coach, that makes me feel like this team just is not confident whatsoever from what they've had in this last stretch. Now, who knows? Maybe something else goes behind closed doors. Maybe I'm just psychoanalyzing this. Maybe, perhaps. I usually do. Sometimes we go off the rails here. It happens. But when you just openly say that, every team has these types of road trips. First of all, they don't, because there's usually not like a makeup game of traveling to 4 different time zones. And also talking about good pitching. That is the main reason as to why they lost, which is true. It's a good pitching staff. It's one of the best. It's probably the best in all of baseball. But to just shake it off like that and say, oh, that kind of just took us over. Their pitching just took us over. Oh, well. First round exit in the playoffs. That's what that sounds like. I don't know. That's just me. I'm just saying. But you know what? I don't have time to talk about everything I don't like about Eric Chavez. But let's get into actually this team, okay? with the pitching side of things, it was very disappointing to see Sean Manaea have that type of start after being so dominant as he was those last two starts. But the main thing that really stunk and really reeked out of it is the fact that the Mets really have this constant walk problem, and we know that, right? The Mets have continued to have this walk problem throughout the entire season, and they've gotten better of recovering after that. But it's continued to bring up the pitch counts, continue to struggle to get length of the rotation. To give you 5 walks after 1 walk over 2 starts, not great. Let's just say that. And this is a Seattle team that does swing a lot. This is a team that definitely has some strikeout issues. They do chase a lot. Swing decisions aren't their strong suit. And the fact that there was a lot of uncompetitive pitches from Sean Manaea, he basically dug himself an even bigger hole. With Jose Quintana, I actually do understand the people saying they should have took him out. But the problem is that they really didn't have... Actually, no. I mean, it didn't seem like they really had anybody available. But the problem that I have with this whole Manaea thing is, we talked about this last episode. Right now, you're in a tough position right now with the pitching staff. You need Manaea to pretty much act like the number one in this rotation, which stinks. It does stink. It really does, because Manaea, we know, isn't a number one. He's a middle-of-the-rotation type of guy. Same thing goes for Severino, where you're kind of, I don't know if you're really asking them to be the 1A, 1B right now. Severino, we already talked about the concerns last episode, so if you want to hear that again, those concerns were put on full display yesterday. And, you know, this is one of the main reasons as to why Explosive coming in saying that, you know, Severino hit an innings wall, the offense will bounce back, but I don't know about Sevy. That's the thing. Like, the offense, again, this is good pitching. Again, I know that they're going to start producing again. I know that. But when you're facing this type of pitching in the postseason, it really kind of wonders as to, is this team actually good enough to face these top-tier teams with good pitching? Guys who have sinkers that run in on your hands. Guys with the super sweepers and the ridiculous movement and, you know, RPMs above 3,000. And this is another good point. The Mets, in my opinion, cost Manaea to a degree on Sunday night by not having Vientos play the third baseline against righties from the first inning. Yes, Vientos did have he's actually had a tough defensive road trip. He definitely has. And there probably is a main reason as to why that didn't happen in this series. I mean, he did sit in the final game of this series with a sore left ankle. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but we know that he's not the best defender. He's gotten better, but he's not the best defender. So there definitely were some defensive miscues around the diamond, but, you know, issuing walks like Manaea did, 5 walks in 3 innings, not a recipe for success. Let's just say that. And, you know, another thing that has become really noticeable, if you're talking about the defense, Francisco Alvarez's blocking ability behind the plate has seemed to be a little bit more of a concern than we thought it would be. It just has not really been good. Again, he is still young. I do think he's going to get better at it because, like, defense, again, there's no real ceiling with defense. So it's going to get better. But, you know, when you have him struggling like he has been at the plate, you know, it could be something as to where, you know, Right now, maybe you see Terens start 3 times a week instead of 2 times a week, right? So you're in a position where, Alvarez, is it possible that Alvarez is just not, playing well because maybe he's still banged up? Maybe. Is it possible? Is it possible that, he needs that finger to catch and he came back early and he's not gripping the ball well? And, we also talked about Alvarez's bat in a previous episode too. I don't know if I'm not sold on it, but I don't know. I have concerns. I just have concerns with a lot of that goes on the plate with him. And again, could it possibly be something that can be fixed? Yes. And, with his hitting and everything, saying blaming the hitting coaches is so overrated. I don't even know what Easy is talking about with that. But, the certain approach, the certain attitude, the main thing that I look at it with hitting coaches is you're supposed to be a leader. And when you see something that is a little bit off, you should be willing to make adjustments with those hitters and take the action. For some reason, I'm not really seeing that. I have seen Jeremy Barnes address what they are doing with this hitter. Talking about McNeil hitting more line drives. Talking about, laying off sliders with Alonso. Or, the struggles of Nimmo. Or, that is the type of stuff I've heard from Jeremy Barnes. Maybe he's just more of the spokesperson at this. But with Eric Chavez, I'm not really hearing shit from him. I really haven't. It's not really anything to do with it's not really just anything to do with blaming them for non-production. It has nothing to do with that. It's the fact of the mindset that he's putting in all these players' heads. You can't have a leader who just says, "Oh, this is fine." You can't have a guy that enables that. It can't happen. I don't give a shit if you like Eric Chavez or not. I don't care. If you think that they should ride high on the 101 win season that they had 2 years ago because of this genius, then go ahead. I don't care. But you can't have a leader just brush things off his back and not address it. That can't happen. Because habits will continue to be habits. We've seen habits this year from hitters. We just saw that, right? We just explained that. JD Martinez chasing a lot of pitches. The outside slider from Pete. How has none of this stuff have been changed? How has no adjustments been made this entire year? And how long until it's too late? You're 120 games into the season, and you're still seeing these issues. I don't know what to tell you. Because, yes, the Mets have been one of the best offenses in the league this year, overall, as performance. But the problem with this is, when you are facing good pitching like this, and we have seen them get exposed by it many times, that's all you're going to be facing in the postseason. So it's not like, oh, well, we can just ignore that. Let's just go play the A's now. It can't happen. It just can't happen. Those are glaring things on the field. That can't happen. And this is also another thing that we can get in. This is more of an off-season topic from Stanley saying that this team doesn't need 2 hitting coaches. Obviously, too many cooks in the kitchen. That's another thing. And that's something we got to discuss, of course. I personally think that after this year, Chavez, Barnes, and Hefner should all go. I think that's and this is Easy. You can go after me on this one and say that you think that a hitting coach makes a difference for a vet like JD Martinez. No, JD Martinez has been making a difference for other players instead of the coach. What does that tell you? How useless can that be? Not to mention on the other side with Jeremy Hefner, we see Lindor go out to the mound more. We see Torrens go out to the mound more. Alvarez, the 22-year-old catcher, goes out more. What are they there for? How innovative are these guys that they just install the information and just let it go? What are they there for? Okay, I can't blame the coaching. What am I going to blame? Am I just going to blame, the Mets are cursed. The Mets are cursed. It's over. It's never going to happen. We're never going to win. The Mets are just cursed. Is that what I'm going to say? I mean, if you want to tell me to come back to reality, the reality of the situation is the coaching has holes in it. I'm not saying that they do everything wrong. What I'm saying is that the coaching installs leading by example. And when you have guys that have this type of mentality and type of this type of approach, or just overall as a leader, when you say, no big deal that they didn't hit. No, it's a big deal. You're in the middle of a wild card race. I can't get in front of that. I can't. All right. Now, and listen, I think that, even if you want to say pitching coaches are better than hitting coaches, then why do the Mets have two? Why don't they have two pitching coaches? Coaching's the thing. Like, I'm not saying, you can't blame the players. I'm blaming Alonso as well. Alonso's been shit too. Nimmo has not been good. But, there's tons of pieces that do deserve the blame here. I'm not here to make excuses as to where this guy is the reason why everybody is holding back. They're not helping. That's what I'm saying. They aren't helping. I mean, he's also coming in saying great offensive teams in baseball history. You can't name the hitting coach. What does that even mean? I mean, what does that have to do with anything? Players make a team. Coaches can make a player. All of this has to be a collective group. So just because you don't know the guy's name, he doesn't have any jersey sales, does not mean that it's not important. That does not make any sense. Okay, let's get into Brandon Nimmo. Okay, let's actually get a little bit more of a deep dive into what has been going on with him, because since the All-Star break, it has not been good. It has been a real tough stretch for Nimmo, as to where he has been probably the worst hitter on the Mets team in the second half. Let's just say that. Mainly because, I mean, Jeff McNeil has been really good too. Really good. He's probably been our best hitter since the second half started, which, imagine that. But even if we're talking about Nimmo bouncing back, or Nimmo in the second in the second half here, one thing that is for sure, we are not finding Nimmo. Now, this year has obviously been a little bit of a down year for him, as to where he's had some long stretches that have not been great. He started off a little bit slow and then got red hot. He was one of the main reasons as to why the Mets got so hot in June. From the top of the lineup, him and Lindor were great. Now, we've obviously seen him tailspin a little bit in these last 91 plate appearances. It has not been good. He's still been getting on base per the walk fairly well. Still walking at a good clip in this little stretch that he has had. But we have not really seen him produce. We have also seen him swing and miss a lot. We have not seen him make good quality of contact recently. And he's just not hitting the ball as hard as compared to what he was doing. Now, this is a very short stretch, of course. And it's still been noticeable since it has been going on for several weeks now. But with Brandon Nimmo, I've always been the one who doesn't really worry about Brandon Nimmo ever. Like, really, I never have to worry about Brandon Nimmo because I know how much of a consistent production he is going to give us. But when you talk about the Mets in this lineup, it's a lot more noticeable, of course. Mainly because the guy is batting second. If he wasn't batting second, it would be a lot less noticeable. Or there are also these Mets fans who like to psychoanalyze everything and are ready to trade Ben Gamble. But with somebody like Brandon Nimmo, who has been one of the main contributors to the Mets offense, he's been one of the main catalysts for the Mets offense overall. And that is in so many different ways. We have seen him drive in more runs than anybody on this team. And I think he still has the most so far. We have also seen him provide a lot of power recently. He is at 16 home runs right now. That's the most I think he's had in any first half of baseball. And, of course, he still continues to draw walks, left field, center field. He's also started to steal more bases as well this season. He is 11 for 11 on stolen base attempts. So he definitely provides a lot, let's say offensively. He is the closest thing to a five-tool player as compared to Lindor, right? So with Lindor, he's a five-tool star. He's got all five tools. Closest thing after that is Brandon Nimmo on this team. And I think we all can agree with that. Nimmo doesn't have all the tools, especially the arm. We know how his arm is not great. But he continues to add to his game every single year. And he continues to improve. Now this has probably been one of the slowest stretches I've seen from him. But I will say that we do have some of the same peripherals coming from him. And like I said, they're a little bit on this graphic as well. You still have seen him make pretty much the same amount of contact in zone that he has throughout the entire season. You're still seeing him not chase as much. You're just not really seeing him make as much quality of contact. And I think, listen, I think there has been a little bit weird going on with Brandon Nimmo. Like, there has been a little speculation around him if he's not completely there. We all know about that whole situation with the concussion that he got before he got on this hot streak, that they did testing, but for some reason they just didn't do it like that long. Like, I think that the thing about Nimmo is that I always would like to see him be a lot more aggressive of a hitter than he is. The problem is he is one guy that, from the top of the lineup likes to work the counts. The difference is that you have enough depth from the bottom of this lineup, and you have a leadoff hitter in Francisco Lindor now. Lindor is Lindor is leading off now. Nimmo is batting second. So the table is pretty much set for a guy like Brandon Nimmo. Now, Nimmo has obviously been able to hit the ball a lot harder, more than like Alonso as well recently. Him and Vientos are pretty much up there in a lot of these exit velocity metrics. He really does. He hits the ball really hard. I need to see him swing the bat a little bit more But I just don't think that he has the confidence to do that, because we have actually seen Nimmo take a lot of strike threes looking in this, because it just seems like the timing is just off. Let's just say that. And it's been a while since we have seen a stretch like this. Let's just say that, because we just always know that Nimmo, whether he has like an 0 for 12 stretch, he usually gets back into the groove of things, right? But here's an example of Brandon Nimmo always being the consistent player that he is. For those of you who see the picture of Brandon Nimmo on the screen and in the thumbnail, that is from 3 years ago, right? That is a picture of him not smiling 3 years ago. Like, we haven't seen this guy down in the dumps for a long time. He has been a good player for a long time for us. So the fact that the only way I could get a picture from him of him actually being like not smiling, he's still showing teeth in this one, kind of, says a lot. I mean, it does say a lot. Not much gets in this guy's head, right? CP coming through here. CP, another great show, guys. Make sure to go check that out. He's great. Good to see you in here. Nimmo has been consistent for a long time. Let's just say that. I'm not per se worried, but I will say that I think that he's more of Nimmo, and Lindor always count me as the guys who are a little bit more aware. And we'll get into a guy who's a little unaware in a second. Different situation. Nimmo is really seemed to be a little bit more aware of what he is doing. There is some things about Brandon Nimmo as to where I feel like he doesn't maximize, his hitting ability enough, as to where if there's a first pitch strike, go ahead and swing at it. You have, the attributes to do so. You have the ability to first pitch swing and do damage. We've seen him do damage, but he likes to work the count. He likes to select his pitch. But the main thing that as to why he can get away with that is because he doesn't chase much, right? We haven't really seen Nimmo really chasing that much in this tough stretch. We just really have not seen him find his pitch that he wants, find the timing, put the ball in play with quality of contact. We just haven't seen him be able to do that yet. We've seen him sort of break out of it a little bit, but we haven't seen that consistent Brandon Nimmo. He gets on base multiple times every single game. That's been the stretch that we have been seeing. So it's pretty noticeable from the 2-hole. Let's just say that. And the main thing that, I love about Nimmo, obviously, is, and this is the same thing that goes with Lindor, the rest of his game doesn't suffer when he's not doing well at the plate. I know that eventually he's going to get out of this. I know that he's going to start hitting again because he's Brandon Nimmo. That's been his whole thing. I mean, he just knows how to hit. He's a great hitter, just overall great hitter. I know that he's going to get out of it because there is still some promising pieces in this stretch as to where I'm like, okay, he's still taking the right approach, right? He's not really chasing that much. He's working counts. He's still walking. He's still getting on base, but we're still not seeing the main Brandon Nimmo as the catalyst Brandon Nimmo. We're not seeing that. And that mainly goes off of just basically the results as to where he just has not been good. Where you can simplify it all the way down. If you want to use batting average, he is batting 158, right? The overall results are just not there. Eventually, he's going to snap out of it. Because I have seen in this stretch with Colorado and Seattle, overall, I would say he has had all good at bat. There was one that was really bad in the Seattle series. But they've all been quality ABs. Not quality results, but quality ABs. So I'm not here to panic yet, but I understand the concern. I do. Because we're not seeing what Nimmo is able to do, and that being one of the most balanced hitters on this team right now with how he has developed the power over the last few years. And this is a good, and listen, MEZ coming in saying Nimmo still walks. Exactly. When Lindor plays well, the team plays well. That's another reason as to why as well. Lindor was the only one who showed up throughout all three of these games. When you think about it. Maybe did McNeil get a hit in every single one of these games? I think he did. So McNeil too. I got to give credit to McNeil. We all know how I am with Jeff McNeil. We already know it. But McNeil did play well in this series as well. So I got to give credit to him. But Lindor, overall, I mean, he seemed like the only guy that gave a shit throughout this entire series. But I mean, it just wasn't a good stretch of games. Let's just say that. And hopefully the road trip, they just put it behind us. You hope that this is just jet lag, 4 time zones in 10 days. You hope that that's it. Because again, like I've said, with a lot of these hitters, whether you're talking about them individually or as a team, you're going to be facing pitching like this in the postseason. So you can't really dance around the fact of, well, the Mariners just kicked our ass. Can't really dance around that. So you'd hope that it's jet lag. You hope. I don't know if there's going to be much to prove it with elite pitching in this Oakland series because there's not really any good pitcher that they have. Maybe if they hit Mason Miller, I don't know. But again, these starters, these elite type of starters, these are the guys you're going to face in the postseason. So there is somewhat of a worry. I think that Nimmo in this series, I don't know how well he did, but he did do better than most of the guys in this lineup. I'm going to have to look this up. Guys, let me know what Brandon Nimmo did, overall his line in this series. Hopefully, let me know if you guys can get to it before me. But let's see. In Seattle, he was 1 for 12. He still walked a good amount. So, I mean, he still was doing the quality AB type of stuff. Let's just say that. He did have that one double. That's right. So they've all seemed to be quality ABs of him doing the efficient thing. He's just not there yet. And I think that eventually he will get there. He's going to get there. Don't worry. I would not worry about Brandon Nimmo. Not somebody that I would worry about. And this is another great point now, and I'll get into it when we get to the preview, saying that they can't take Oakland for granted. Absolutely, they should not. And I said the exact same thing about this Mariners series where they should not take the Mariners offense for granted. Because they sure as hell did enough. They sure as hell did enough to sweep us. Go 4-6 on this road trip. So let's just say that not everything is what it seems. I know everybody believes that I only think that this game is made on a computer. Nope. Outliers happen. Streaks happen. Luck happens. It's all taken into account here, guys. Now, will I use data to maybe troll? Sure. But that's just all the fun of it, right? Is that all the fun of it? I don't know. Is that funny for you guys? I don't know when I troll on Twitter. I don't know if you guys follow me or not. But speaking of Twitter, actually not speaking of Twitter because I'm not going to bring it up, to be honest. Let's get into Adam Ottavino. Now, here's the deal. You guys may notice that these comments from Adam Ottavino came out during the last episode. That's the time of the last episode. You may be wondering as to why I'm talking about this now. If you follow me on Twitter, or you follow me on X, or whatever we call it now, if you follow me on X, you know that there was stuff that went on regarding this conversation with a certain voice in the Mets community that was, we were going back and forth with each other. If you know, you know. I'm not going to entertain it. I am not going to personally attack anyone because that's just not, whether you believe if I'm harsh or not, that's not the type of person I am. I'm full on constructive. I don't just go after people personally, and I'm not going to do what this certain person did. That being attacking me personally. I'm going to talk about the facts in hand, okay? I'm not even going to give the entertainment to any of it. Adam Ottavino made comments the other day talking about the Mets bullpen turnover and how, with corresponding moves coming in of guys like Donnell Nunez coming back eventually, Sean Reed-Foley coming back, even Reed Garrett, because this was before he was activated and Alex Young was sent down. The problem with this is we got some bold statements. They talked about with Adam Ottavino and asked him, with the bullpen turnover, do you think that you're next? And as we've all seen from Adam Ottavino this year, he's definitely been one of the weakest links in that bullpen. Jake Diekman was possibly worse. Jake Diekman's gone. So now, once you take out the dead weight, you get to Adam Ottavino, who has not had a good season. And there is an argument against this. There is. I'm going to shut down the argument because it's ridiculous. But when you talk about somebody like Adam Ottavino, you know that Adam Ottavino is 37 years old, right? His best days are behind him. We know this, right? The Mets have put themselves in such a position with Adam Ottavino where they don't even trust this guy in a 4-run game or a 5-run game. That's really how far he has gone down in the pecking order of this bullpen. For some reason, he is still here. Now, in regards to being still here, they asked him about a possible DFA. And here's what he said. I think it would be foolish to let me go. It occurred to me that it could happen, but you can't control it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm still throwing the ball the way that I want for the most part, so I just have to try and live with the results. Now, guys who could possibly be coming off the injured list who are on the Mets 40-man roster right now, that being Sean Reed-Foley, who is rehabbing in AAA Syracuse, very close to returning. Donnell Nunez, who threw a bullpen session yesterday, strained forearm. He's on the injured list. They could get him back within the next week or two. And then also Grant Hartwig, who has been rehabbing as well from knee surgery. He might not be called up, but he is still an option because he is still on the 40-man roster. So I just decided to put him there. And if you look at Adam Ottavino's season, you may be experiencing, he's due to possibly do better. You know, the 3.64 fielding independent pitching, expected ERA of 3.11. He's still striking out tons of batters. He's not walking that many. Not true, but here's the deal with Adam Ottavino. We already know my case with how the Mets have approached this with Adam Ottavino, and I'm going to give a little bit more of a refresher. When the Mets signed Adam Ottavino in 2022, he was great. He had the best year of his career. But for me, I have always been someone who doesn't like to buy into peak years. I've never been one that likes to full-on fork out money, voluntarily fork out that money, especially when we've seen them struggle in the previous years, right? If they do well from the upside that they had the year before, you take it and leave it. Not to mention, Adam Ottavino is 37 years old. He was 36 at that point. You take it and leave it. The Mets decided, no, he was good. He will do it again, which obviously he didn't. They decided to bring him back on a 2-year deal with a player option. Then he comes back. He's not as effective. gives up tons of home runs, not great in high leverage situations, walking more batters than he was, and he became a weak link of the bullpen. So then he decides, I'm too good for this. My ERA was low. I should be paid like it. He declines a $7 million option, and we're like, finally, he's gone. Move on, get somebody younger, get somebody with more upside, and then the Mets turn around and bring him back again for a third year. I'm not trying to say that, Adam Ottavino was never good as a Met, because he's had a good Mets career. He has been a plus arm. But in the certain situations that they've pretty much been backed into a corner with Adam Ottavino, there really is no use as to why this guy should still be on the roster. I don't care what he has done in his career. Those days are over. And even if they're not over, they are numbered. Exactly what has he been able to do in these past two seasons that has made him an actual asset to this bullpen? Not to mention internally, the Mets know, because they've been putting in these low leverage situations. He's not even in the back end of the bullpen anymore. Whether he was the eighth inning guy before Jorge Lopez went nuts, he's not the eighth inning guy anymore. They're waiting for Danel Nunez to come back. They even brought in Phil Maton, who's been better in these back end roles. He's become a low leverage reliever who also can't succeed in those situations. What has he been able to do this year? He hasn't been good against left-handed hitters. They just tee off on that sweeper that just basically goes right into the barrel zone. He's not good with runners on because they run all over him. He's not good on back-to-back days. You can't put him in a tie game. You can't put him in a one-run game or a two-run game or a three-run game or a four-run game. You can't put him in while you're behind. You can't put him in while you're ahead. You can't put him in medium leverage situations, high leverage situations, low leverage situations. So what is he doing here? He's a limited asset. And we've already talked about Adam Ottavino, of the concerns we had of bringing him back. Not to mention this whole pitch clock thing. And Darren actually just popped it up at the same time here. He was good in 2022 prior to the pitch clock and rule changes with the stolen bases outlawing the shift. Exactly. So, again, adjusting to that sort of era as to where he's not that valuable anymore. And I feel like there's a lot of Mets fans who are defending Adam Ottavino in the sense that, well, he has these good metrics. Great. The problem is that the tools that he has to create those metrics, they have been inconsistent. Even if they're showing up expectedly, or even if they are being projected as one, he still has those tools that are not there anymore. His stuff has been declining in these last two seasons. He's lost ticks of velocity. He has lost command of that sweeper. He doesn't even throw that cutter anymore. So at face value, yes, he looks like a decent reliever. He does. But when you're talking about specific situations, this guy is only a negative asset to this bullpen. What exactly has he done in those last two seasons that has become reliable? Because, yes, he can have the great baseball savant page. And listen, we all know how much I like the data. I give you guys data every single time. Every single episode, I give you advanced data to look at it from a different angle. But also, tools can project this a lot better. Not to mention, a lot of these baseball savant, a lot of these things, like these red circles that you're seeing on Baseball Savant, they don't really project much. They expect regression. They expect progression, or whatever you want to say. But they're not a full-on breakdown of what these guys have been able to do. I talk about pitch shape a lot. It's been horrendous. He has the worst graded command out of all of his career this year. He's not even considered real good stuff anymore. If you want to talk about Stuff Plus and all those graded metric systems, it just hasn't been good. He just hasn't been good, and he hasn't been able to get the whiffs and chases that he wants. And it just has not been a good performance out of the bullpen. And I think a lot of people have to start admitting that. Excuse me. I think I don't know if my camera froze there, but let me know. And when you look at it from the Mets bullpen, let me give you 8 arms, okay? Tell me which ones you don't trust more. You don't trust more than Adam Ottavino. Just had a stroke there for a second, my bad. Tell me which ones you don't, okay? List out in the chat, let me know. Edwin Diaz, that's 1. Dinel Nunez, that's 2. Sean Reed-Foley, that's 3. Phil Maton, that's 4. Ryan Stanek, that's 5. Okay. Huskar Brazaban, that's 6. And who else am I missing? Danny Young. And let's see. Reed Garrett. Those are 8 relievers I just listed out. Which one of those don't you trust over Adam Ottavino? For me, out of what I have seen recently, I don't trust Adam Ottavino with anything. I don't even trust him to, like, I don't know, get coffee for everyone. He has had a great career. No one is denying that. But at some point, you're going to have to accept that a spade is a spade. At some point, you're going to have to accept that he doesn't have it anymore. Age happens. Guys get older. Ability diminishes. And the game moves along with it. But the game still moves along. The Mets can be a team without Adam Ottavino. I've seen them do it before. I'm not even really looking at hindsight right now. The reality of the situation is he's not a reliable reliever. There's not a single reliever in the Mets bullpen right now that I would put below Adam Ottavino. He is relief pitcher 8 on this team. And the Mets have treated him like relief pitcher 8. That's the main reason as to why he's on the chopping block. But for some reason, we continue to give him the seniority. Well, he was good once. He'll figure it out. Even though he's one of the main reasons as to why we have burnt so many bullpen arms, and the main reason as to why he's blown a lot of games in high leverage, and one of the main reasons why he's not able to, he's the one guy here who can't get 3 outs to save his life. He's the one guy that we can't use on back-to-back days. He's the one guy we can't use in high leverage. What the hell is he still doing here? And listen, if this is more of a discussion as to where Mets fans are getting tired of other Mets fans just complaining about the weak link, I get it. I understand that. But when you have options that probably can make the team better, and you do, in Sean Reed-Foley and Dinel Nunez, who are going to be part of it because Dinel Nunez has been possibly our best reliever this year, and also Sean Reed-Foley was really good before he got hurt. It's not the fact of if this guy has had a good season overall or not. It's just the fact that he doesn't apply to what the Mets need to succeed. What have been the Mets' issues in the pitching? What has it been? High leverage situations. He hasn't been able to do that. Base runners running all over them. He hasn't been able to do that. He hasn't been able to succeed there. Walking batters. Adam Ottavino. That's his main thing. Darren Rivera coming in saying, like, I think some of the numbers and analytics don't tell the whole story, and certain players rely on them too much, and sometimes it's paralysis by analysis. That is a good point. That is. I think that the thing is that, and again, I'm the analytics guy, and we all already know I am. How much I love these advanced data, but I understand the significance as to where it applies, right? I feel like there is a way that a lot of advanced data is used as a crutch and not a resource. And that's one of the main reasons as to why I'm not that big on, oh, well, this guy's got red circles on his Baseball Savant page. He must be great. I'm looking at things that he can actually provide in the future, right? Things that he can provide going forward. Now, some of the advanced data that I look at, it's not really something that is very popular. I hope that it becomes a little bit more popular so then you can kind of look as to what can regress and what can't. But when you look at it from just Baseball Savant as to where this guy's got red circles and he's good, we're going to have to need a little bit more than that. We're going to. How about we talk about why he has those red circles? I mean, have we ever really thought that as to where as Adam Ottavino, he manages contact fairly well, mainly because he never puts the ball in the strike zone? There's main reasons as to why things flicker up and why they don't. I feel like we do lose sense with a lot of advanced data people who like looking at this stuff. They put a lot more stock into what as to the how. And that's the how is the best way to find sustainable success. There's a lot of factors that go on with Adam Ottavino here where we asked him to do the bare minimum and he just has not been able to do it this year. And the fact that he does have the nerve to say something like that as to where saying, and again, listen, I'm just saying, does that not sound like what Eric Chavez just said? Like, who knows what that's coming from the pitching coach side of things. But again, like I'm saying, he basically just said, and I'll put it up again. He basically said, it would be foolish to let me go. Basically saying, I'm Adam Ottavino. I think I'm pitching well. And I'm just going to live with the results that suck. That's what he just said. That's it. Oh, well. C'est la vie. That's it. That's all Adam Ottavino told you. He said, deal with it. Because I'm Adam Ottavino. Guess what? Everyone's replaceable. Everyone is replaceable. And I'm not going after Adam Ottavino personally. None of this is personal. And I want everybody to know that right now. When I say something that maybe sounds like I'm going after someone, it's not personal. It's constructive. It's not just supposed to say, I despise this man. I want him gone. Maybe I'll make some stupid jokes, but none of it is actually concrete. Most of this comes from constructive criticism. You know how, like we say, criticism doesn't mean hate, overrated doesn't mean bad? It's kind of that type of scenario. And I think that then there's also those people out there that take it to a whole new level. DM them personally and go after them because they're mad and they want to blow off steam. That's not what I'm doing. That is the stuff I don't condone. That's just out of place. I will never, even if I am frustrated with Adam Ottavino, I'll never go after him personally. I will never message him personally. I will never go after him. I will never at him on Twitter saying that I want him to die. No, I will never do that. Because there's a fine line between it. So when fans do say that they should DFA somebody or they should get rid of somebody, there's a reason behind it. Is there some elements behind it as to where, maybe some things that he says rub you the wrong way? Likely what he just said, saying it would be foolish. Yes, but those aren't the people, like the people that attack his family, go after him personally. That's not the stuff that I'm condoning here. What I am condoning is the fact that people need to look at the facts here. Adam Ottavino has been a weakness in this bullpen all season. You can't look at ERA for relievers. You just can't. With inherited runners, all that, of what runs get charged to who gave up to who, that just can't be looked at. If you want to look at for starters, that's fine, because they have extended outings. It happens. But you can't just look at it from, this guy has a good career ERA. He's gonna ERA the ball forever. And he's not going to, because everybody hits Father Time. Father Time's undefeated. And it's not just like the way that I just say, oh, well, he's old, I don't want him. It has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that age has definitely been a factor to Adam Ottavino in these last 2 years. It has been, because we have seen his stuff regress. Like, it has been a noticeable part. If you look at him in 2022 as compared to now, he's a completely different pitcher. He's not making good pitches. And it's already enhanced and put on full blast now because of these new rules. In his first season here, we had his slider grade out to 134. It's now at 102. His signature slider. Changeup, 74. Sinker, 99. These are all career lows. They're all career lows. He's regressed. It's just true. It has nothing to do with him just blowing one game and we're upset about it. What is he taking up a roster spot for if you can't use him in anything? It has nothing to do with just sketching out the weak link. It has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that you can't use him in anything and expect to get 3 outs. If you get 3 outs from him, it's going to take him 40 pitches. You have to take the situation at hand. And he just has not been good. He's just not good anymore. And this is exactly what I feared with them bringing back Adam Ottavino in the first place 2 years ago. They say that age is just a state of mind. Well, not when you have to throw 90 miles an hour. There's a reality that comes in. The reality of the situation is Adam Ottavino is just not that good of a pitcher anymore. He hasn't been for the last 2 years. He's continued to decline. The Mets overworked him in 2022, which I definitely believe, And he hasn't been the same since. He's had good stretches. He's had good outings. But for these last 2 seasons, have you ever looked at Adam Ottavino and said, oh, this is our second guy behind Diaz like he was in 2022? No. I mean, exactly what reliever don't trust? Like, I feel like there's some people that do trust Grant Hartwig over Adam Ottavino right now. There's some people that trust some of the guys in AAA. Maybe Eric Orsi you trust over Adam Ottavino right now. Bit of a stretch, I know. But what I'm saying is, when a guy needs so much to succeed, right? This is the same thing that we talked about with Joely Rodriguez. What was it, 2 years ago? If he needs to face lefties, he needs to be in this situation, the 3-batter minimum rule or something. That pretty much just exiles all of it. There's a 3-batter minimum rule now. That's the main reason as to why you can't just get him in, oh, let's just get 1 batter. Nope, you got to place 3 batters. Let's bring him in with runners on so he can get a ground ball. Well, they just run all over him. How has nobody tried to steal home out of Ottavino yet? I think it's pretty easy. I probably could do it. I'm not fast. There's so many factors as to where he just can't succeed anymore. It has nothing to do with just trying to, I mean, for me at least, it's not trying to just edge him out of here or get him out of here because he has not been good. I have not wanted him here for the last 2 seasons. And for some reason, at this current moment at 5:23 p.m. on August 12th, he is still here. I tried to warn everyone. 2022, they should have just thrown it in the waste bin. Even though he was good, I get it. There were still signs at the end that they should have kind of, I don't know, saw or took on notice, or just the fact that you should not pay relievers like anything unless they're the top 1%. You know, the Diaz's or the haters or different situation. You know, Andres Munoz, he'll probably get a big check or something. But if you're talking about just middle relievers, guys to add to this bullpen, Adam Ottavino just wasn't it. He wasn't it. And he's had good stretches. It's happened. He hasn't been a bad Met again. But at one point, you got to let things go. And now it is the time to let things go. The seniority of Adam Ottavino should not keep you from putting somebody better in there that we know is more capable of getting outs out of the bullpen. The seniority is something that really needs to take a backseat sometimes. When he isn't giving you what you want him to give you at the current moment, his career means nothing. Other teams have done this before, okay? I understand whether they think they like he's a good guy or whatever, but the guy's attitude of how he presents himself, of how, you know, this guy is in the clubhouse, everybody likes him. That shouldn't be the reason as to what dictates who stays on your team. Who is, as the managers, as the front office, you need to put the best players out there to put you in the best position to win. And when Adam Ottavino is not good for anything, what is he doing here? What exactly is he doing here? That's my point on that. Another guy that I didn't even mention Jose Budo. I know we all trust Jose Budo more than Adam Ottavino, right? We're all in favor of that, correct? I don't think anybody would object to that. So the fact that the pecking order has become the pecking order that it is right now, relievers are up and down. And that's the main reason why I wouldn't give them more than a 1-year deal. Again, there's a few guys I would break the bank for. We all know it. 2-year deals are a little bit pricey for me with there, but I would understand considering the level of the reliever that they are. The Mets, for some reason, just keep on going back to the well with Adam Ottavino. It's either mid-season or in off-season. For some reason, they just keep on bringing him back. And hopefully, they do make the right choice. And I know that David Stearns loves his lefties in the bullpens for matchup reasons and ground balls and a lot of those funky types of lefties. Danny Young is the only lefty in this bullpen right now. And he's going to continue to be the only lefty that would be in this bullpen if he stays. Do not option Danny Young because he just has an option. I don't want to see this because Tommy Hunter is out of options, he's going to be on the major league roster. Steven Nagosic is out of options. Let's put him on there. If a guy is not performing, he's not performing. And all I can say is there is going to be quite an outrage, from me at least, if Donnell Nunez is back and Sean Reed fully is back and activated, and Adam Ottavino is still here. If you bring back Sean Reed fully and, send down whoever, fine. That'll be strike 2. Strike 3 would be keeping him here when we all know who the better options are in the bullpen. Damn straight. Let's just say that. For those of you in here, before we continue, I just want to let you guys know to hit the like button, subscribe if you have not already on the live stream. For those of you watching on Twitter, make sure to hit the follow button on all of our other platforms. Follow us on TikTok for Frank's post games as well, who is not here today. And vote on our poll as well. That is in the YouTube chat, asking you guys your concern level after the Mets getting swept in Seattle. Now, speaking of Seattle, let's talk about individual performances, going to everybody's favorite segment, studs and duds. One player that has played fairly well, we want to give some flowers to, and one player that did not play well. And we would like to have some words with them. Now, obviously, I'm the only one here. So the stud, I'm going to give this one to Francisco Lindor. Like I said, he seemed like the only guy that showed up in every single one of these games. Offensively, McNeil did show up as well. He was responsible for the only run they scored in this series. But Francisco Lindor, 2 multi-hit games in this game. Great from the leadoff spot. It's just been money. Seems to have come out of that mini slump that he had starting off the second half. And he's really starting to get back into that groove there and a continuing great season that he has had. So kudos to Lindor again. He just seemed like the only guy that was awake 24/7 throughout those 72 hours in Seattle. Now let's get to the dud. Dud, I got to give this to Sean Manaea, especially with how just very disappointing it was to see him just melt down like that, not be able to find the strike zone as compared to what he was able to do these last 2 starts, or even the 10 starts before that, where he's been on this phenomenal stretch. For him to just not be able to throw that many competitive pitches against a Seattle team that swings and misses a lot, it just is not good. It really just isn't, especially when you're facing, a pitching where margin of error is very slim. It just was not a good outing. If you're going 3 innings, it's not good from a starting pitcher at all. Not being able to work deep into games. That's red flag number one for a starting pitcher in an outing like that. Also, Ryan Stanek had a tough outing yesterday. The Mets bullpen had a really just tough all around, getting pummeled late, 12-1. Stanek, I still do believe in. We all know how much of a fan I am of Ryan Stanek. I wanted them to sign him in the offseason. To sign him in the offseason, he's making less than Ottavino. But definitely not a good outing for him. I do believe that there's still stuff there. And I think that he's going to bounce back eventually. But, maybe they make a decision on that. But I think with Stanek being acquired at the deadline, they're going to continue to give him chances. And they should, because I do think that he is a good pitcher. So I know a lot of people are sour on Stanek right now. But I'm still hopeful that he can turn it around because I do think he is a good pitcher. All right, so let's get into the injury report. I did hint a few of these throughout the stream, but let's put it all together. Mark Vientos was scratched from Sunday's game due to a sore left ankle. He is day-to-day. There is no further concern. It looks like he'll probably be back in the lineup against Oakland tomorrow. Sean Reed-Foley is expected to pitch a multi-inning outing for AAA Syracuse before he is activated. We still don't know what the return date is to the Mets bullpen, but it seems like that will be depending on what happens in his next outing where he goes multiple innings. Danel Nunez threw a bullpen session on Sunday, and he's expected to throw another bullpen session on Tuesday at Citi Field. We still don't know when his rehab assignment will begin. We don't know if he's just going to come straight off the IL. Most likely he will have a rehab outing. But overall, a huge piece to this bullpen this year, and hopefully we can get him back to solidify that back end. And, keep everybody healthy. And again, with the corresponding moves, hopefully these two guys in the middle boot out a guy that we just talked about. And here is the most saddened news. Let's just say that. Remember that guy, Bryce Montes de Oca, who just throws absolute gas? Well, we've got some bad news here. He has been placed on the full season injured list last week due to an elbow injury. The main reason why we can put some sad emphasis on this one is because he was rehabbing from his second career Tommy John over the last month, and he was slowed down and put on the injured list. And there is some internal concern, no confirmation yet, but there is some concern that he may need a third Tommy John surgery, which is just absolutely heartbreaking when you think about it, because this is a guy with so much talent. And, we all know that this is a big arm, but the main reason for him, he has just not been able to stay on the field. And I was really looking forward to see him make a late season comeback. And, this could be career threatening for him. It could possibly be, or maybe he does come back. But the injuries, they stink. They really suck. And I wish him the best. Again, like I've said multiple times, I mean, for years, Montes de Oca was one of my favorite draft picks that they made over the last few years. And I was really hoping to see him pan out because he is quite the explosive arm when he is healthy. But the problem is when he is healthy, which is not very often. So let's get into the final segment, which is going into this next series, which will be against the Oakland Athletics, who are coming to town. Let's pop this one up for the pitching matchups. Paul Blackburn in Game 1. Still a few games off of injury, so still shaking off the rust, but so far with the Mets, he has been pretty good. He's going to go up against his former team that just traded him a few weeks ago, up against Ross Stripling at 7-10 on the 13th, which is tomorrow. And the second game, we have David Peterson coming on the mound. And he will face off against Mitch Spence, young starting pitcher. That also will be at 7 o'clock on the 14th. And the final game of the series will be a day matinee, which will be Jose Quintana and Joey Estes. I don't know if that's correct. Estes, who I believe was one of the pieces that they received back in the Matt Olson trade a few years ago, and now he's on the Major League mound. So this series coming up, and in that final game of the series on in that final game of the series that is on Thursday, I will actually be going to that game. I will get to see that one live. We all know how I feel about Jose Quintana, but that's kind of just how it's lined up. We all know how, I live pretty far away from Citi Field, so it's not easy. I can't be, beggars can't be choosers with that one, but I'm excited to see the Mets versus A's. We all know that my dad is a huge A's fan, so we are kind of doing a little head-to-head matchup there. And hopefully the Mets do a lot better than this series. Let's just say that, because if they don't do well against Oakland, there's going to be a little bit more heads that roll as compared to Seattle, who is a team in contention. Oakland is not. Now, as for Oakland, somebody said this earlier on, they cannot take Oakland for granted. Let's just be real for a second. Oakland has hitters. They have hitters in that lineup. Brent Rooker is having a career season. Lawrence Butler is breaking out as one of the best rookies in this game. And, they have other guys in that lineup who have also returned. They've also, they've also performed fairly well in spurts. Let's just say that. So they do have hitters in that lineup. The main thing that I really found a little bit weird is the A's as a team are a sub 400. So they are below 400 as a team in slugging percentage, but they are top 5 in home runs. So that is kind of weird for me. I don't understand as to why. Maybe it's just all the extra base hits they're getting are home runs, but it's so odd to see something like that. I don't know if it's going to be on full display there, or maybe they just hit a bunch of home runs and dominate us. But the A's have hitters. Let's just say that. We all know they have a bullpen weapon known as Mason Miller, so hopefully they don't bring in any save situations as to where he is in the game, because most likely the game will be over there. They have pieces on that team. They have good pieces on that team, and hopefully they can muscle through it. Again, maybe it is a trap series, maybe it's not. Oakland's not a great team, but they're not bad either. So there's things you still need to look out for. They should not just be coasting throughout this one. They still have a lot of work to do. Treat this team, again, like I said last episode, treat this team like your playoff hopes depend on it, because they do. So hopefully we have something more positive to talk about on the next episode. Now, obviously, with me just being here, I can't go the full 2 hours or I'm going to completely lose my voice. So we're going to stop it at an hour and 40 here. But thank you for those of you who tuned in. Wow. If I can talk, that would be nice. Let me start that one over. Okay. Thank you so much for those of you who watched live, who maybe popped in for a little bit, for those of you who commented, who gave your insight in the chat. For those of you watching on playback, make sure to turn on the post notifications to not miss this very podcast that is recorded live on Sundays and Thursdays following every single series of games. We also have the audio version of this episode that drops at 9 a.m. the following day. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on TikTok and on X. Follow everybody individually who are my co-hosts who are not here today. And, of course, as always, let's go Mets, guys. Hopefully they can play better baseball than this, because if not, we're going to have some problems. All right, we will see you guys next time. Peace out.